Now that we understand that narcissism, when we talk about the personality disorder, we talk about the personality component, particularly maladaptive narcissism, that it has that dual structure, surface content, core content. But there's one particular trait that gets confused with narcissistic personality disorder, and that is entitlement. When you look at both of these videos, I think that if you look at it, you could say, well, who's more narcissistic? Is she or is he? I mean, the date didn't go very well over there. You know, if you notice, she got up and walked away. And he doesn't even seem to care. So interestingly is that I think that we misconstrue entitlement to equal narcissistic personality disorder. And that isn't true. Entitlement does not equal narcissism either. It's a component of narcissism. And because our current culture, because we have these amazing phones, we have this amazing technology that makes our life easier, it builds a sense of expectations. We are adaptive creatures. We adapt to the world around us. And we're adapting to all of these really just amazing technological advances. I mean, just with our phones, I mean, I control my entire practice on my phone. Absolutely. I mean, really, it's amazing. I'm constantly amazed by my phone. Interestingly, though, all of us have entitlement. And I'm going to give you an example, right? Let's say you need to go somewhere. You're not really sure where it is, right? So you type it into Google Maps, ding, 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 right? And for whatever reason, Google Maps takes a second to come up, process, and just for a second, you feel a little annoyed. I mean, hopefully you don't chuck your phone or start cursing at it or anything like that, right? Because that would be a really aberrant response. But we get this little annoyance because we have an expectation. And how entitlement is factored into that expectation because I'm so entitled. I expect you to treat me in a particular way. I expect you to know what I want and give it to me. And if you ask me any questions about it, then you must not want to give it to me. So then that means that perhaps if I've internalized that sense of entitlement, which I think we see a lot in generations that aren't 52, that's a better way. In a lot of my clients, I think that are late teens and probably mid to early 20s, they've internalized that sense of entitlement, that when that entitlement isn't given to them or bestowed on them, it becomes internalized, and that internalization factors into or builds to issues of depression, self-worth, poor self-concept. And so that becomes what we're dealing with. I don't think it's a narcissism epidemic. I think we're dealing with a depressive epidemic, because I think particularly for those that are late teens, and the research says that it's largely females that are contending with this, young girls and young women are contending with this because not only the sense of entitlement, but also with social comparison, which is not what we're talking about here, but it is a component of narcissism, that social comparison. But again, that sense of entitlement is that every time I type in my address to Google Maps, I should get it immediately. That should be bestowed on me immediately. But if we broaden it out and we look at the maladaptive aspect of narcissism, of narcissistic personality disorder, there's also grandiosity. There's also this poor ability to connect to others, to care about others functioning or how they're doing or what I need to do in order to build up my narcissism. You are irrelevant. My narcissism, my sense of self is superior. Entitlement, individuals that are entitled don't typically have that. That moves us more towards narcissism. That takes us down, remember, right, with that slope we saw, it takes us down that downward slope. That moves you closer along that narcissistic personality chart that we saw earlier. So we always want to separate that out. We don't want to make assumptions that entitlement equals narcissistic personality disorder, because with entitlement, first of all, if somebody comes in to see us and all they have is entitlement, and they have some stress and issues and concerns in their life that's causing some depression, that's causing some fear, you know, certainly talking about expectations, certainly talking about social comparison, depending on the age, particularly if I see someone in their late teens and mid to early 20s, I absolutely want to know how much time they spend online, what social media they're talking about. It's interesting. And in many ways, it's a lot like alcohol. Because, right, you know, when we're assessing people for substance abuse, that we always multiply it by 3. How many drinks do you have, you know, a week? Oh, you know, but most people I talk to, they're like, oh, you know, 2, maybe 3, you know, on the weekend, they're okay. And then sometimes, you know, the rule is to multiply by 3, and that might give you an idea as to how much they're actually consuming. So, and I think the time that they are on social media, I think that we can multiply that as well. We can consider that as well. So again, you know, we don't want to get caught up in entitlement means narcissism. And you might get somebody with a bad attitude or something like that. Doesn't mean that they're narcissistic. It means that certainly they have a component of narcissism or entitlement, but that doesn't equal narcissistic personality disorder. Let me see something. Yeah, and so Charlotte wrote, you know, right? I want what I want, right? When I want it. Absolutely, absolutely. That and that is entitlement. It is a component of narcissistic personality disorder, but it doesn't equal narcissistic personality disorder, which is why narcissistic personality, why all of these personality disorders are so rare, because you have to have enough of these traits that cause so much socioeconomic dysfunction in the individual that it has sort of grown over time, that they have learned these maladaptive response patterns that are so destructive to self, relationships, employment, all that socioeconomic dysfunction, that it is just so problematic. And just entitlement isn't enough. I would work with 100 people that are entitled over someone with severe or extreme narcissistic personality disorder. Doesn't mean that I don't do it, work with someone with severe extreme NPD, but I know that it's going to be hard, and I know that the probability of them staying in treatment long enough to get to core content is pretty low. So there isn't a lot of research. We've been doing research in the last 5 years. If you Google Scholar narcissistic personality disorder, you know, you'll see that there's a greater frequency of research, and that's probably been in the last 5 years or so. But interestingly, so a lot of the research is on borderline personality disorder. So 70% of individuals with BPD leave treatment early. And there's a whole host of reasons for that. But I think that that number also relates well to individuals with narcissistic personality disorder. And I'm talking about these two disorders in a way as if they're mutually exclusive, right? That, you know, you got NPD here, you got BPD here. So we're going to push BPD. We're just using it for a second. We're going to push BPD over there. We're just going to talk about NPD. So I think 70% is about right, particularly the probability of leaving treatment early. And early means before you've made any gains, before they've embraced the adaptive strategies to manage that core content and the surface content that's so disruptive to themselves, their lives, their job, things like that. So again, I think that they're not staying in treatment long enough, which is why we have to use different methods in order to connect with them. And I don't want to say help them per se, but encourage them to stay in treatment.